In this lesson, we'll go over what to look for, then we'll move on to setting up when intersections are involved, working the setup, and breaking down the setup. There are 4 things that you want to ask yourself before you start putting equipment in the street. Where is the work site? Whether it's on or off the road, you need to know how much room is needed for a safe work area. How many and what type of vehicles will be on the work site. Make sure you're in communication with the work crew foreman to go over any potential hazards and type of work because it may affect what type of setup you need. Look at the road layout. How many lanes of travel are there? How is the opposing traffic separated? No paint, painted solid line, raised center median, turning median. All of these things play a factor when you choose the traffic plan that you base your setup on. Look for other paths of travel, like sidewalks, bike lanes, turn pockets, and side streets. These things will also play a factor in which traffic plan you select. If you have any of these things, you'll usually have to use multiple traffic plans and put them together to create your work site. And lastly, you want to know what the speed of the road is. You have to know the speed of the road so that once you have selected the traffic plan or plans, you will know where to properly place everything. You found your work location and it's next to an intersection. You've also found that there are 2 turn lanes moving traffic towards your work site. So you have to close down the turn pocket that would normally send traffic down the lane that you're going to be closing. Now you need to know how many lanes of traffic are traveling directly towards your work site. Just note that if the lane directly across from your work site was a right turn only and next to it was a single through lane of travel, you could use the traffic plan as is because you'd be taking out the lane before it actually becomes a second through lane of travel. But in this case, there are 2 through lanes, so you need to use another traffic plan in conjunction with this one for the proper coverage. In this case, it's the TC30 as noted in the traffic plan. You need to use the TC30 along with the TC35 because you have a lane of traffic heading directly towards where your worksite will be. According to the TC30, we'll be doing a right lane closure before you cross the intersection to give a proper taper and buffer for the worksite. You will also be creating a turn pocket for traffic that needs to make a right-hand turn. Note, the taper is completely taken before the right turn lane is created. Keeping in mind the road traffic and the speed of the road, set out your taper the proper distance for the speed of the road and give yourself enough distance from the intersection for the right turning lane so that congestion can be minimized and vehicles are able to make a smooth transition into the turning lane. The lane delineation wedge will help keep traffic in the appropriate lanes of travel because you don't want traffic changing lanes at this point. Once the setup is complete, you want to make sure that you keep an eye on this area to make sure that the equipment is staying in place and traffic is flowing well. Now that you know which plans you're going to use, you need to know where everything needs to be placed in relation to the work area. So make sure to refer to your spacing chart for the proper placement of equipment. If you're using a joint utility manual, you'll find the spacing charts on page 16, 17, 18, and on the back page of each traffic plan. If you're using the San Diego standards, the spacing chart is on TC4. Take your TC35 and your TC30 and put them together to get a clear picture of what goes where. There's a proper order in which this needs to be set up, so let's walk through it. Set up all your advanced warning signs before putting out cones in the road. Start by shutting off the left turn lane with proper signage. Set up the taper and right turn pocket with appropriate signage. Then set up the work area with proper coverage and signage. Note that when rounding the corner by the work area with cones, make sure traffic can turn into the open lane easily. If you followed the standards properly, you shouldn't have to make many changes, but you still want to keep an eye on traffic to make sure that it's flowing properly. Make sure to keep yourself away from potential hazards, especially from within the work site. If you have a partner, one of you should be on each end of the work site. However, if the crew you're working with is split into 2 groups, there should be a traffic control person with each crew. Each traffic control person should have a 2-way radio with them so that they can communicate any changes or hazards. A stop-slow paddle will come in handy if you need to hold traffic because your hand is never an acceptable device for holding traffic. Setups can be very long, and you may not be able to see what's going on with all of your equipment. To make sure everything's staying in place, periodically drive the worksite. This should only be done by one traffic control person so that you never leave the worksite unattended. Just as a reminder, pedestrians that may not be paying attention to your equipment have no idea what kind of danger they're trying to walk through, so you always want to be on alert so that you can keep them safe and redirect them. Just like setting up, there's a proper order that should be followed when breaking down. You want to let the crew out. Then starting at the end of the termination taper, pick up the cones going towards the buffer and taper. As you're picking up the cones, pick up any equipment that may be in the lane closure before picking up the cones that are protecting the equipment. Pick up your left turn lane, pick up your early warning signs, then make sure the site is completely picked up before leaving. Now that you've picked up all your equipment, drive home safely. Always wear your seatbelt and never use portable electronic devices while driving. This concludes the course. Now it's time to take a quiz on what we just went over.